Well, it's great to be back in Jacksonville. I don't know if you guys had quite the snow that we did on the western part of the state in the north, but it was quite a last day or two for Florida. We smashed records for snow. I think we got almost 10 inches or maybe even 10 inches in some parts of northwest Florida. I know we had a freeze across the rest of the northern part of the state, but pretty remarkable. And so we're thawed out. We're going to hopefully see the corner. You know, everyone should still visit Florida. This is totally unusual. It's not necessarily, I mean, I thought global warming had stopped this, right? And yet here we are. So come and do it. Now, we're here to discuss pending issues for the state, particularly for next week in this special session of the Florida legislature that I have called. We're joined here in this roundtable by Dave Kerner, who runs Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, which also includes Florida Highway Patrol. Of course, Representative Kyan Michaels, Florida House of Representatives, 16th District. Sheriff T.K. Waters here, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And then Nick Injegno, did I say that right? Yes. Assistant Secretary Agent in Charge, Department of Homeland Security Investigations. And so we have been in Florida, and not just Florida, I mean certainly Republicans around the country, for 4 years were complaining about Biden's border policies. He obviously came in almost 4 years ago now, reversed what Trump 45 had done, basically opened the borders to this country in ways that have had huge numbers of people, millions and millions of people pouring in, and it led to, I mean, I don't know if you saw, they did an ICE operation, I think in Boston, and they got this criminal. This guy had been convicted of things, still sitting there. So they grab him, and they're going to deport him, and he's like MFing all this stuff. He says he's not going back to Haiti. I'm just thinking about, like, they developed a sense of entitlement about those Biden policies where people thought they could come in and break the law with impunity. But that's what it was, and I know all across this country, certainly all across this state, Republicans who are running for office especially saying how they were against it, you can't do. So we've been fighting this fight for a number of years, both working with law enforcement here in Florida, but also just having good policy that deters people from wanting to come illegally to our state in the first place. And if you think about it, 2023, we did sweeping reforms. Kyan was involved with shepherding those through. Massive reforms to discourage illegal immigration. The media was saying our whole economy would collapse because we were discouraging illegal, which is totally false, and we've continued to grow very, very significantly. But one of the things we did E-Verify for new hires. We required hospitals to collect and report on the health care costs incurred by illegal immigrants, because you show up to the emergency room by federal law, they have to serve you. They're not permitted to turn you away even if you're not lawfully here. So we were trying to do that. And what's happened since then? Massive decrease in costs, incredible decrease in costs. So there were all these different things that we've done to be able to fight back against that. And we even had a transport program. I mean, you saw a big change in the debate on the border once you had illegals showing up in Martha's Vineyard. I mean, that was like, they didn't even think about it. Then all of a sudden that happened a couple years ago. Then people started talking about the border more and more. So there was a whole host of things that we've done. We've leaned in. We've sued Biden under Attorney General Moody. Now she's our U.S. Senator now, but she was the Attorney General then, did that. And we're happy to lead that. But the reality is there's only so much a state can do. You need the federal government to do its job. Well, now we saw on January 20th the total change in policy with respect to border and illegal immigration under the Trump 47 administration. So this is a great opportunity for our country, but certainly for people that have been complaining about Biden for the last 4 years. You want to now get in the fight and be part of the solution. And it's simple things like, I had to surge boats in South Florida 2 years ago because they're coming in and people they get to the shore. So we surged in boats and we interdicted a lot of them, turn them over to the Coast Guard, they send them back. A lot of them come from Haiti and some of these other countries over there. But if they got to the shore, then somehow Biden would let them stay. Well, now they've already beefed up the Coast Guard, but we're going to get, if they show up on the shore, we should still be able to just send them right back. Why would we engage in all this stuff? So there's a lot of possibilities for us now that we have federal partners that really want to get the job done. So you look at it, you can be thankful that, yes, borders matter, the law matters again, but you still got to implement all this stuff. And I'm telling you, you're going to have states like California, you're going to have cities like Chicago. They are going to try to frustrate and to stop any type of enforcement of immigration laws. I think a lot of those political elected officials have already come out and said that, but certainly you'll see the ACLU filing lawsuits. I mean, I think they basically think you have a right to come here illegally whenever you want. And they will try to find a liberal judge, maybe it'll be in Hawaii, that will rule for them. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts. So it's not like it's just you do an executive order and all of a sudden all the pieces fall into place. You also have a fact that really it's been probably 10, 15 years since they've really been very, very proactive. I mean, a lot of the resources, a lot of the policies changed over many years. And so, yes, it was way worse under Biden, but I think this is the first time in a long time we've really been committed in a big way from day one. So this is really, really good, but they don't have enough resources, the federal government. They're not going to be able to do this by themselves. And if the states and cities are fighting in the blue states, that's going to make it even more difficult. So here we are in Florida with a chance to help make a difference and to be part of the solution once again. We banned sanctuary cities my first year as governor, and we're not a sanctuary state. So local officials, state officials, well, state officials obviously are gonna follow, but you don't have the right to block any type of immigration enforcement, and if you do that, you can lose your job. And certainly, if I have any authority over it, you will lose your job if you do that. But that's not enough. It's not just saying you won't sabotage the federal government enforcing immigration law. We want our localities, municipalities, counties, and of course state, which I could just order, we want all them to help facilitate this important mission. Not displace the federal government's role, obviously it's their primary responsibility, but to complement that and to work with them so that we have robust interior enforcement of our nation's laws once again. So seeing that this was coming down the pike, and I had spoken with the president-elect at the time, as we were speaking with some of the people in the transition, we knew these executive orders were coming out. We knew that they were going to be very serious about doing this, but we also knew that they were going to need more resources. They were going to need funds. They're going to need things. So it's not going to happen immediately, particularly in the next 3 to 6 months. So states can really be an important part of this by stepping up to help fill the void. So we prepared to do that really many weeks ago. I called the special session of the legislature to start on January 27th, and they are to address the issue of immigration as well as the issue of petition security and election integrity, the condos to fix that, and then also any outstanding hurricane relief. But clearly this immigration stuff, there's a mandate from the voters. They want this dealt with. They are sick of having lawlessness reign supreme in this country when it comes to who comes in our country. That is not for foreigners to decide. It's for us to decide as Americans through the normal political process and in the laws we choose to enact through our elected representatives. So the Monday special session is a great opportunity for the members of the Florida legislature to basically just put their money where their mouth is. Everyone has been complaining about Biden for 4 years. Now we have a new sheriff in town. Now we have an opportunity to make a difference. So let's make sure that our local partners, the state of Florida, has the adequate legal authorities and the adequate funding necessary to be able to really make a difference when it comes to the rule of law and immigration enforcement. So I've put out a series of proposals that, look, there's other people that can have other good ideas too. Bring it to the table, but now's the time to do it. We want to ensure that all of our levels of government are participating positively alongside the federal government with these efforts. And there's different things that they can, 287G, getting into the weeds, but we want to impose the duty on them that you can't block, you can't be part of the problem, but you actually have to be part of the solution. Now, I'll order the state agencies to do that just as my authority as governor, but cities and counties need to be part of the solution. We want to make sure that that's very, very clear. We also want to make sure that we have somebody in state government that will be able to coordinate with both our local entities as well as federal authorities. If you look at some of the things that have come down, it's not just going to be Department of Homeland Security. You're going to have other agencies that are involved in different ways, maybe not as much domestically. But, you know, for example, if someone comes illegally, you want to send them back, the country's got to accept them. So sometimes that requires diplomacy from the State Department. Defense is going to be on the border. You're going to see a lot going on. So there's going to be a lot of irons in the fire. We want to make sure that we're coordinating those efforts in a way that's really, really positive. Our transport program that we've done helped raise visibility of the issue for the general public, but ultimately we were never permitted to send to foreign countries or to repatriate. Now I think we're going to be able to have that authority. So if we're going to be having people wash up on the Florida Keys, if we stop them before they get to the Keys now, we give them to the Coast Guard sends them back. But if they get to the shore somehow, then we're just stuck forever. That's not good policy. So I think we're going to be empowered to take and to send back to Haiti or Bahamas or wherever the illegals are coming from. So making sure we're expanding the transport program's authority is something that's really, really significant. Gang enforcement. You see these gangs coming in illegally into the country, whether it's the Venezuelan gangs or other gangs. They shouldn't even be allowed in the country, but obviously you want to give law enforcement the ability to take care and to hold these people accountable, including by referring them to immigration authorities. And so we want to make sure that we're doing what we need to be done for gang enforcement. We also have to reform voting and education with respect to illegal aliens. Now, one of the things that Florida did, I mean, I wasn't a governor at the time, but it was 2014, I think 2013, 2014, they did preferential tuition rates for illegal in-state tuition. Why would you give that if you're not even valid Florida residents? Why would you give a tuition break? And so that was a mistake. That's an incentive for people to come to Florida. So we want to remove that incentive. We also want to make sure when people are going to vote, you're not allowed to vote in Florida if you're not a U.S. citizen. That's in our state's constitution. But, and we have prosecuted people who have been non-citizens, both legally in the country but not citizens, and illegally in the country and not citizens. Florida's prosecuted people for voting when they shouldn't have. But the problem is once they voted, the vote counts. Like they're, you know, by the time you prosecute, the election's long over. So we need to change when people attest their eligibility to vote. They need to attest that they are indeed a U.S. citizen. And if they attest to that and they're not a U.S. citizen, then you don't have to wait for the election. You can hold them accountable for lying on those forms. So making sure our elections continue to lead with integrity is really, really significant, and we're going to do that. Another way to deter illegal immigration into our state is to crack down on these remittances. So you have people come illegally, they'll send massive amounts of money back to their home countries, usually through wire transfers. Well, we're going to say on remittances, we want E-Verify for that too. So if you are lawfully employed here, send your remittances, but you're going to have to go through the E-Verify, and if you're not, then they're not going to be able to process your remittances from the state of Florida. That'll be a huge, huge disincentive for people to want to come here illegally. We also want to ensure that appropriate bail policies are in place for illegal aliens who are accused of crimes or arrested for crimes and charged with crimes. We want a rebuttable presumption that you don't get bail. This way, you're there, and people running the jail can call the DHS, have someone come, and hopefully just take care of it without us having to even worry about it going forward. But at a minimum, we want to recognize that these are flight risks. So there's a lot of things, and I think there's probably some other good ideas out there. But we need to be at the forefront of this. If we're doing this and working positively with our federal partners, this is going to make a huge, huge difference. And if you think about it, I mean, you have people come massive numbers into our country. That puts pressure on schools, puts pressure on health care, the auto, the roads. You know, we're obviously worried about how people were driving in the ice up in particularly northwest Florida. Some of the roads are still closed because the freeze. But what will happen is the people that are here illegally, a lot of them don't have insurance, so they run into you and then they just leave the scene of the accident. And then you're just left holding the bag. Why would we want to have more of that? So there's a whole host of things, I think, from just day-to-day life that will make a difference. But then also, you have who governs this country? Do we govern it? Well, we've decided that there needs to be a process for this. You can't just end run around the process. And ultimately, we do need to uphold the rule of law and the fact that we are a sovereign country. So this is time to act. Now, when we called for the special session, you had the leaders of both the House and the Senate write a letter, say they thought it was premature to do anything on illegal immigration. How is it premature when we've been waiting 4 years for this moment? It's not premature. Now's the time to act. We can't drag our feet. We can't wait for something to go into effect in July. We need something immediately, and we need to get everything moving, and we need to do what we told the people that elected us that we would do. And I'm excited to be able to make progress next week. One of the people that's here with us who's going to be leading that charge in the Florida House of Representatives. So we'll go through and just let everyone say their piece, and then we'll have a little bit of a dialogue after that. But I want to turn it over to Rep. Michaels for her thoughts on the need to have this special legislative session.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you to everyone that's here, the sheriffs, and I never felt more safe. All of the Leos that are here, and thank you for all that you do. For me, the #1 title that I carry and will always carry is Bring Brandon's Mom. And some of you all have heard what led me to run for office and what our family has endured and why immigration is so significant and is impactful to our family is because our 21-year-old son, Brandon Randolph Michael, here in the city of Jacksonville, was killed by a twice deported illegal. And that means that he was twice ordered to leave this country, and he came back twice. He had been here in the city of Jacksonville for 7 years that we know of, living among a community. People knew that he was here illegally. No one even did anything to really try to discourage him, as far as I know, from coming here the right way. So he had time to become a U.S. citizen, or at least start the process. He didn't do that. Our son was going on his lunch break to cash his paycheck, like any 21-year-olds, engaged to be married. Our middle child had just left the house, and we get the call that he's been hit in a car wreck. And it was such a horrific experience that he didn't die instantly. And that's what some people, they just don't know all of the story. Governor, you've been very vital, and you've been very, just a sweetheart to us and dear, because you've heard all of it. And it can't be easy for you to hear these stories over and over. But we're a real family, and this is a real tragedy that happened. I'm not someone that's on television that somebody's watching and they can't relate to. So our son, we just thought we were going to be planning a wedding, and here we are planning his funeral. He suffered, and the illegal that killed him got out of his car. He never had a driver's license. He got out of his car and watched our son die and take his last breath. So he didn't do anything to try and help him. You all, the reporters, you guys hear these stories. You don't really focus in on me because most of the time you hear from the mainstream media, you hear the stories of all the sob stories of the reverse side of that you're hearing now, where people who are here and should not be here and they're having to go. But you really don't get to hear firsthand people like myself. And for us, I knew that I had to do something, and our family went through an immediate crisis. No parent should have to bury their child. I mean, we can all agree, I'm sure everyone in this room, those who are parents, can all agree to that. And when you go through a tragedy like that, you can either allow it to consume you, or you can do something about it. And we started to fight. We started to speak out. My husband is sitting in the audience, and he is a retired Navy veteran, and I'll tell you, he felt just so disenfranchised because he had been fighting for our nation for 20 years. And our nation just didn't fight for our son to keep him safe. And so for immigration to be on the forefront, and it has been for such a long time, we just got to get it right. We've got to finally get this thing right. And we have now at the national lead a president that wants to do that. And so for me, it makes sense that we follow his suit and we follow his lead. And you've been very great at being ahead of everybody else, because I've been right there with you when we were discussing the 287G program. And I think we called it a Warrant Service Officers Program. And we were traveling all around Florida trying to get the sheriffs to sign on board. And this is why that's such a big part of this legislation, because we need the cooperation. We need other sheriffs to say, okay, I will sign on, and I will say that I will cooperate with the federal side. And I will also make sure that we detain these illegals, because our son, the person that killed our son, he had encountered law enforcement previously, and they just gave him a ticket. Someone who never had a driver's license. They let him go. So there was an opportunity to avoid all of this, to avoid our child being, his life being taken and our family being destroyed. And you don't ever recover from something like that. And so after going all around the country and finally having a governor to come in and to stand at our side and say, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what happened to your family. And you took us on board. You took on our whole family. You took the weight of it. And I know you're a dad, and I know that it was hard to hear. But nevertheless, you didn't back down, and you didn't push us away. And I appreciate that. And I'm here because I know that what we are saying we're going to do it's needed. It is necessary. I'm living proof of it. If it was being, if this was something that was capable of being stopped at the national level, at the border, then I wouldn't even be here in this position. So obviously there is a problem that we've been overrun. And this was in 2007. That tells you how long ago it was, and it's only gotten worse. How many other mothers I've had to comfort, and my husband, the fathers he's had to comfort, that have gone through the same thing, because we speak out to avoid this from happening. But nevertheless, it's happening more and more and more. And it's been my honor to even carry legislation in the House. It's just been incredible. When you talked about part of the law that we did a couple of years ago, which was SB 1718, and it was to capture the numbers of people who are using our emergency rooms, to capture the money that it cost us. I mean, literally within a year, it cut in half what the taxpayers are paying. And the reality is that none of you all had a choice. You weren't asked, do you want to take care of people who are not supposed to be in this country or not? And that's unfair. I think it's unfortunate, and I think now is the time to do something about it. So.
Great. Well, thanks so much. We appreciate all that you've done. All right, Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, Executive Director Dave Kerner.
Thank you, Governor, and Representative Michaels, thank you for your courage in turning tragedy into an opportunity to advocate and fight for our communities. I think the election has shown us that Americans are not going to allow themselves to be victimized voluntarily any further. As law enforcement officers and with almost 2,000 state troopers that have been on the southwest border we did a count over 40,000 individual nights away from their families, what they've seen, what their actions have been. They've been heroic. Hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants have been encountered. Thousands of arrests have been made. All of those efforts, though, without the help of the federal government, have been external facing, and that we haven't been able to do any enforcement or removal operations in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security. That all changes, and that all changed with the election of the president. And so to the Assistant Special Agent in charge, Nick DeGenio, did I say that?
Yes, sir.
I know that we haven't met until today, but we've talked on the phone several times. immediate about face from DHS and from the federal government on what their intent is and what their orders are. And we're very excited about that. I can tell you within 24 hours of President Trump's inauguration, I received a personal phone call from the 287G liaison in the White House on behalf of DHS. We are ready to rock and roll. They're working diligently to get those MOUs. So, Governor, let me just speak at a little bit of a granular level for a second about the importance of this special session. First of all, law enforcement, by nature, is forced to look at issues in sort of an objective black and white context. Illegal immigration, and I don't want to speak on behalf of all law enforcement, but I think you'd find a lot of agreement on this point. Illegal immigration is not an issue of humanitarian public policy. It is, for us, we understand that it is merely a weapon and extension of the cartel industrial complex. Whether somebody is here, when someone is here illegally, whether their intent is to assist the cartels or not, they are complicit in it, because every dollar, when we talk about remittances, every dollar that is made in the United States and sent to Mexico or other areas where cartels operate, a portion of that is going to fund the operations of the narco cartels. That's just a fact. And many people talk about remittances in a way that is, well, you have somebody who's hardworking, they're here legally, but, well, there's no but. But the argument has been they're working here, they're helping society, they're sending money to their family. Well, that's still legal, and it's still helping the cartel industrial complex. However, what we've realized in the last 4 years, what we've discovered at the Florida Highway Patrol in our interdiction efforts, oftentimes when we find smugglers on our highways and our roadways, and we know that they've been involved in narco activities, but there's no narcotics in the vehicle, what we do find are receipts through Western Union and other remittance outfits that they are sending their money right back to the cartels in Mexico. They're selling the drugs in our community, they're ravaging our communities, and they're sending the money right back to support the operations of men that want to take the lives of law enforcement officers and destroy our communities. If the last 4 years, if these cartels were a public corporation, they just had the best 4 years in the history of making money and making profits and ravaging our communities. And that stops. That stops now. And if we want to talk about a special session and what that means to law enforcement and the nearly 2,000 state troopers that are on the front lines and all the men and women in local law enforcement who are desirous to work with the federal government and make an impact, what that means to us is it's a very special opportunity, and it's a very important moment in this battle, in this final chapter that we hope we are entering. That's because if you think that these cartels are not sophisticated organizations, they are. If you think they're not watching what's going on in Florida and how the legislature is either punting or not on going after these cartels, because that's really what we're talking about, they are watching that. And we have a moment in time here. It's not performative theater. This is a moment that we need as law enforcement officers for the legislature to properly fund and prepare us for the battle that these law enforcement officers are about to go into. Because I promise you, under the last 4 years under President Biden, the cartel has not engaged law enforcement in an aggressive manner. They haven't had to. But believe me, when we go into these battles, whether it's domestic or it's in a military context outside of the country, the cartel strategy is going to change. And I'm telling you, from an officer safety standpoint, officer safety is everything that we do is officer safety, equipment, training, integrating with the state guard, integrating with our local partners, integrating with our federal partners. This is a moment in time for the legislature to properly fund what we need and to do it immediately. There's no reason from an officer safety standpoint to delay this process. And so, Governor, we, the Florida Highway Patrol, our partners in state law enforcement, we will be there on the 27th. We will be ready to interact and make our case even further. I know that in Representative Michaels we have a very willing supporter, and I'm thankful for that, but I hope you amplify the necessity for the state legislature to take this special session very seriously. It is not just a special session, it is, in fact, the most special session, because it's an opportunity for us to begin this final chapter immediately. And with that, Governor, thank you. for this
Okay,
opportunity.
yeah, thanks so much. Okay, and our host today, Sheriff here, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, TK Waters.
Thank you, Governor. So first of all, let me start by saying I'm proud to be a sheriff, an elected sheriff in the great state of Florida, and represent the people of Duval County and take care of this county the way that it should be taken care of. Unfortunately, we hear the words immigration when we discuss this issue. It's not just immigration, it's illegal immigration. I stress that. It's not immigration, it's illegal immigration. That's the problem. I don't think anyone on this panel has an issue with legal immigrants. I'm thankful that we have a strong legislature. We have the best governor in the entire country. And I know that what needs to get done is going to get done. We have the issues to back it up. We understand the situation here in our county to back up what we're talking about. It's not an issue that that's only reserved for the southern border. We just did a huge takedown of a major drug organization here in our county, where 2 kilos of fentanyl were taken off of our streets, enough to kill a couple million people. But not just that, 74 kilograms of cocaine. Just recently, before that, there was another one where we did with the New Generation Mexican Drug Cartel was involved. This last one was the Gulf Cartel. These cartel issues are not just at the southern border. They're nationwide. And it's a nationwide issue, and an issue that I take personally in my county to make sure we take care of the citizens of Jacksonville. I'm going to do that. I'm ready, and I stand firm, and I'm ready. I'm a man of very few words, more action than words. I have zero tolerance for people that want to hurt members of our community. We have a beautiful city here, and we're going to take care of our city, and we're going to take care of our citizens. So if there's any question about where I stand, you know it now. We're going to take care of this city, and we're going to take care of the people of this city. And we can no longer allow the pundits, the people that want to call it something other than it really is. It's a scourge in our society. It's illegal immigration, not legal, illegal immigration, and we want to fix that issue. Governor, I'm a man. Like I said, I'm a man of few words. So that's all I have to say. But thank you very much for hosting this event or having this event for us.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, Nick, go ahead.
Thank you, Governor, for having me, and thank you, everyone, for being here. At Homeland Security Investigation, we are working closely with our colleagues in the Immigration, Customs Enforcement as we receive guidance from the President and his team. Partnerships are extremely important in law enforcement, especially in the public safety mission. And I want to thank Governor DeSantis, FHP, JSO, FDLE, and among many other state and local partners in the state of Florida who support our mission. They are among some of the best partners we have. We work together on many different crimes, including human smuggling, opioid and fentanyl smuggling, violent street gangs such as MS-13, and the newer trend de Aragua. We sit on many different task forces that combat human trafficking, such as our Capital City Human Trafficking Task Force, the Intercept Task Forces in Jacksonville and Fort Myers. HSI is working closely with Immigration and Customs Enforcement to support President Trump with all our authorities and our abilities. We look forward to our continued relationship with the state of Florida and law enforcement and how they can help us meet our mission, because like I said, it's way too big for just us to do. So thank you, and thank you, everybody.
Great. Okay, so Dave Kerner, so he oversees Highway Patrol. So when Biden was president, if you had somebody illegal going 100 miles an hour, you pull them over, and they have like a license. They have a license from some foreign country, and you say, "Are you illegally allowed to be here?" And they say no. If you called ICE, would they ever come and take them off the street?
The short answer is no. There had to be a very high level of approval for Border Patrol to come out in terms of an underlying crime that had already been convicted and whether there was a detainer or not. But in our experience, 99 times out of 100, no, we've had to leave people that weren't supposed to be in this country on the side of the road when we found 20 human smuggling victims in certain circumstances. And one of the most frustrating dynamics that I know we have troopers here in the crowd. It's such a frustrating dynamic to see that happen.
Yeah, so we're certainly at the state level. All the people know that they need to be actively helping to facilitate the mission. I mean, you got somebody with no insurance going 100 miles an hour, you pull them over, they're illegally in the country. That's when the feds need to come and do their job. You put them back on the street, and then they're driving crazy, they hit somebody. That's what happens when you don't do your job. So we are definitely going to have that happening with our Highway Patrol. Okay, Rep. Michaels, you know, you've been in the legislature, you guys have voted on a lot of stuff. These package of reforms, I mean, most of your Republican colleagues, I would imagine, have campaigned saying they want to do something about this, correct? I mean, do you think these would be proposals that would pass the legislature?
I think so. I think that, I don't know one of my colleagues that wouldn't agree with the proposals that are here, because I'm living proof, unfortunately, of why it's needed. And I have not been silent. I have not shredded back on any of this, and I'm available to answer any of their questions. And they've been really good with working with me and supporting me in the past. And I don't want to sound like, you know, they haven't been, because we've been blessed to really do a lot. We have done what other states were not able to do with immigration. I had other states call and ask me, how were you able to pass E-Verify? How did you finally do that? How did you all do that? And can you tell me so we can replicate that where we are? And what did you face? And what was the pushback? And I was like, oh, there's a lot of pushback. Believe me, they're going to tell you all about the farmers and the fruit dying on the vines, and that the grocery stores, you know, are going to be impacted, and the kids in the school, and the grandma trying to come to pick up the kids has to cross over the border, all of that. You got to face all of that, and you're going to hear all of that. Nevertheless, we just have to make up and be determined in our mind if we're going to be ahead or if we're going to be behind. And we've been fortunate with your leadership to be ahead of this issue every time.
Well, you were with us. I think we did the first press conference saying we needed to ban sanctuary cities in Florida way back in 2019, and then that led to you know, you getting elected to the legislature and then spearheading our big package in 2023, which was the most significant in the country. And by the way, which the media and the critics said we would have no food in Florida. They said all these things. I mean, just crazy things. How do you get away with just saying all this stuff and then it proves false time and time again? You know, we dealt with this in COVID. Oh, if your schools are open, you know, it's going to be terrible. This, it wasn't true. This, that, the other thing. But yes, they were predicting Armageddon because we had this. And now the media, like somebody's saying, well, the administration's looking to Florida to see, you know, how you do this, right? Because we did it, and we've been successful. We've got a lot more to do, and with the federal government, it's going to be very helpful. So, Sheriff, what are the things that we're concerned about are gangs? And I know you guys have dealt with gangs for a long time in this area generally, but I think we've seen more, whereas the gangs used to be very domestic. Now you're seeing a lot of these foreign gangs. You know, Venezuela, other places. We think there needs to be some additional, I guess, additions to the definition for gang-related activities, particularly geared towards illegal alien gangs. You know, would that be helpful for you guys to have that keyed in so you could protect your folks?
Yes, sir. We have a unique gang problem in Jacksonville, and they're usually very small neighborhood groups, not really that organized. But I just learned from our federal partners there, approximately 3 or 4 individuals here from one of the Venezuelan gangs. So that would definitely help us, Governor. But if I can share some information just really quickly. You know, from the beginning of the Biden administration through 2024, this is the number of individuals that came through our jail that were illegal. 121 in 2021, 280 in 2022, 287 in 2023, and 334 in 2024. The number consistently rose during that time. Now we're in a time now where that's not going to rise anymore, thanks to our governor and thanks to our great president of the United States. So I will say that, Governor, any additions that can come to help us with those gangs that are outside of, that are not citizens of our country would be tremendous for us.
Great. Okay. So Nick, in terms of that, because you kind of mentioned it, you guys have certain assets. I think some of your assets have atrophied over the years, just given the posture. I know the administration is going to go to Congress, ask for more support, not just for the border, but also for the interior. So in order to do the job, is it possible to do it if the states and locals aren't assisting you guys?
It's impossible. The state and locals have so much more access to individuals and information than we do. If a crime happens, you know, we don't always know. So we really rely on our state and local partners in order to contact us regarding certain individuals, whether they're, you know, here illegally, smugglers, committing crimes against children, all those different things. We really rely on those partners. And again, the mission is just so big, and without them, we wouldn't be successful.
Now, like Florida, we don't allow sanctuary cities, but in some of these places that are sanctuary in other parts of the country, they will affirmatively refuse to help, and they'll try to stymie things. So that's kind of the one extreme. We're kind of on the other side where, okay, yeah, we know that in Florida you're not allowed to stymie, but we want to be active participants in assisting, and this is something that you have opportunities to do. You have the ability to really make an impact, partially just because this is what our folks are doing at the state and local level every day. They're responding to issues with the community. So we have a chance to really complement those efforts, not displace it, but complement them in ways that I think are going to make it very, very effective. So our goal in Florida is to be working. We work side by side on other issues as well, and we have. Not on immigration as much over the last 4 years because the administration at the time had a much different posture. But now, for example, when I first became governor, you were in prison and you're illegal. When you finished your sentence, we'd call, ICE would come and just grab you from the prison when you were done, and you'd be gone. Biden came in, that wasn't always the case. I had to raise a ruckus about some of it. I kind of shamed them into doing more, but there were people that they just allowed to be released after serving a prison sentence. So we've done it before in ways that have been constructive, and I think we can do it again, and that's what we're going to be looking forward to do. So I want to thank everybody for participating. Clearly, we got to seize the moment. We shouldn't be waiting months and months. We should act now. This is what the American people have called upon us to do, and I look forward to being able to see real significant progress on these issues next week. I think it'll make a big, big difference. Okay, with that, we'll take some questions. Yes, sir.
Have you gotten any update from the Senate President or House Speaker as to whether they're just going to gavel in and gavel out or actually take up some of these issues? And also wanted to hear your thoughts on the birthright citizenship executive order being struck down early on in this court battle.
Well, so on birthright citizenship, the question is not just birthright citizenship writ large, it's do people in the country illegally that birth kids, do they get birthright citizenship? Because I would imagine the majority of people in this room got citizenship by birth. Your parents are American, you're born on American soil, you don't have to fill out paperwork, you're a citizen when you're born. That's the way, and I don't think anyone's questioning that in respect to American citizens. The issue was the 14th Amendment written with the intent that someone could illicitly cross a border, birth a child, and then that child becomes a U.S. citizen. Clearly, that was not what they were looking to do. What they were looking to do was overturn the Dred Scott case from the 1850s, which basically Dred Scott was a freed slave, and he basically lost in court because they said you can't be a citizen because you're black. Lincoln criticized that. Lincoln ran against it. Obviously, we fought the Civil War, and then when they did the post-war amendments, 14th Amendment citizenship clause was to make clear that you couldn't discriminate on race with respect to citizenship. It was never intended to apply in situations like this. It was also a different time period, though. We didn't really even have a lot of immigration then, so they probably weren't even thinking about it. But clearly, we know that most of the judges are going to be hostile to the Trump executive order because you're taught in law school that it doesn't matter, you can parachute in, birth tourism, and do it, and somehow that's fine. That's what they teach folks. I don't think that's the correct interpretation of the 14th Amendment. So I mentioned the other day on the social accounts, this is going to go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's never actually decided the issue, as if you have people here illegally have a child, is that birthright citizenship. People will point to the case of the Chinese immigrants in the 1890s, but they were legally here. And I do think that distinction matters. And then they said the child of the legal immigrants was birthright. But birth tourism, where people just come from a foreign country with no connection to here, have a child, and it's a citizen, that is not what that was anticipated to do. So it's going to end up in the Supreme Court. And I think the question is how many votes are there to kind of reevaluate that historical, although I think wrong, understanding that people have been taught in law schools over the years, that somehow it doesn't matter, you can parachute in from anywhere you want. And that's what birthright citizenship is. That was not the intent of the 14th Amendment. That was not how it was originally understood. And it's created a huge negative incentive for people to come. And there is a birth tourism industry, but it also helps facilitate illegal immigration, because if people think if they can just get here, have a child, then it's kind of an anchor, and then they can never be sent away. And so I think it's created a lot of problems. So it's going to work its way up. I don't know how many votes on the court to reevaluate it. I'm confident there'll be some, but eventually this is going to be, I think there's going to be a reappraisal of this eventually. Maybe it's on this executive order going to the Supreme Court. Maybe after a couple new justices are put on. Who knows? There could even be a constitutional amendment. But most people look at that, and we're one of the few countries, I think there's only a handful that have anything like this. Most other countries do not do it. And I think it's created a lot of negative incentives here in the United States. Yes, sir.
Hi, Eric Omniak from WJST News Channel 4 here in Jacksonville. I just have 4 questions. One, Florida is home to hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants who are working in areas.
Well, you know, so the federal government has made clear that the statutory term, it's not they're illegal aliens. That's the statutory term, and that's what it is. And I think it's to try to water down. I mean, like, undocumented, it's like if I get in my car and I forget my wallet, okay, I don't have my document on me, like my driver's license, but I mean, I still have a right to drive. I just made a mistake. This is intentional to come in illegally. And it's not just a question of missing a document. It's a question of, you violated the law. That were very clear, and knowingly, and with the help of the cartels in many cases.
Okay, so I'll rephrase that. So Florida is home to hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants who are illegal aliens, if you want to call it, who are working in areas of agriculture, farming, construction, hospitality. I'm just wondering, once we start to see, the significant roundups of these people, is there a plan in place to help those industries, to prevent those industries from experiencing true hardship, financial hardship?
So here's what I'd say. They made the same arguments in 23 when we did our immigration, Cayenne Road. We did E-Verify. When any of those industries, when they hire new people, they've got to verify their immigration status. Otherwise, they can't work. And people said, you are not going to be able to hire anyone. They said, you're not going to be able to have, and that was totally not true. We've seen the state continue to do well. In spite of a lot of really significant national headwinds, we've outgrown. I think we have led the country in economic growth since 2019 when I became governor. Some people say Idaho was a little bit more than us. Idaho is also smaller than Duval County, so it's a lot easier to grow fast when you're small. We got 23 million people, so the growth has been incredible, even with some of those policies. So I think it's a misnomer to say that somehow we're not going to have a functioning economy if we follow the law. I don't think that that's true at all. And I also think it's the case that, when we have our laws on the books, which are good, E-Verify their stuff, and then when we did it, I mean, there was obviously a big kerfluffle about it. I mean, some of this was phony narratives, but the narratives were out there. You did have illegals leaving Florida voluntarily because they said Florida's serious about it. But we'd have people call in to, our office or different agencies and say, oh, I just saw a busload of illegals, in Central Florida. And they would basically say they're illegal farm workers. And then so our guys would go look, and they had H-2A visas. Now, you can argue about these visa programs. I mean, I'm a critic of things like H-1B, where they bring in foreign workers. Americans train the foreigner, and then they fire the American and let the foreigner work at a lower wage. Yeah, I don't like that. But clearly, if you have one of those visas, you're here lawfully. So I don't think you're going to see that at all. I think there's always that. But here's what I'd say about those businesses that knowingly and intentionally hire illegal aliens. A lot of it, they just want cheap labor. Honestly, the H-1B, even though it's a legal program, they want cheap labor too. But think about it. You as the company get cheaper labor, then you're offloading the rest of the cost to us, the health care we take care of. Anything that happens on the roads with accidents, any type of criminal activity, the schools, we're on the hook to doing all that. So when you're talking about illegal labor, it's really a massive, and when it's going to the big companies, that's a massive subsidy that we then pay for through all the other things that happen when those folks are not self-sufficient. Now in Florida, any big company has got to verify immigration eligibility. So I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal here as it would be maybe in California. Not only do you not have to verify, they probably encourage you to hire people that are here illegally. Next.
Would the state be providing local police departments with extra funding?
Absolutely, yes. No, we're not going to do unfunded mandates. We are going to require participation with the federal effort. That may require some additional duties be imposed on existing personnel. Maybe they'll need to bring in some new people, and we're going to provide funding to that effect because we think that that's only fair to be able to do. Now, TK sees the big picture. A lot of our sheriffs see the big picture. If you have rule of law and you stop illegal immigration, you are going to have less crime. You just are. I mean, it's just the reality. The media will be like, they'll say immigrants commit crimes at lower rates, and they conflate legal with illegal immigrant. I would hope legal immigrants commit at less rates, because if they're committing at higher rates, why would they have knowingly been let into this country? Illegal immigrants, the crime rate should be close to zero because we can choose who we're bringing in. Obviously, our native population, it's not like we can choose, oh, well, we're going to send you to Chile or something. If you're a natural-born American, is what it is. But illegal, any crime committed by an illegal, by definition, was avoidable if you had been enforcing the law. And obviously, Cayenne knows that more than anybody. And the repeated deports and back and deport and back, or release, catch and release, that is really what's galling. When people should have been taken care of in the past. But yes, we're going to have funding. We're going to ask for funding. We want to be able to help, but we also understand that they have a burden. So I think you're going to end up, it's going to help with crime to make illegal immigration illegal again. I think it will. I think probably this stuff ends up paying for itself if it sticks nationally with good policies at the border and we're doing the proper deterrence for sure. But even if somehow that's not true, it's still just the right thing to do, and I think it's what our citizens expect us to do.
Any number on that funding, sir?
We have numbers. I'm not going to give it now. I mean, we're still. I think I was asked, do we know what House and Senate leaders? Have they said anything? No, they haven't said anything. I can tell you the members privately are telling us that they want to get to work. The rank and file members. I don't think the idea that you would go in and just gavel out is sustainable, because people would have to go on the record saying they think that they should gavel out and ignore this. And so that would be very, very hazardous politically, I think, for these members to do. And I have my constitutional authority to wield in this process, and I will continue to wield it as appropriate so that we're able to get the job done.
Are you saying you'd call them back over and over again if they kind of do this?
I said the other day, it's like a junkyard dog. Like, you got the chain. It's like, as soon as someone comes in that junkyard, you jump on and you just don't let go, right? You don't let go. These issues, the immigration and the election integrity, I'm not letting go. I'm not just going to wait 6 months for something to eventually stick. We are going to do, and here's the thing. This really shouldn't be much of an issue in terms of the back and forth with the legislature, because all these people ran saying they were opposed to Biden's policies. They all ran in support of Donald Trump in the 2024 election. Obviously, they all ran similar on our agenda in 22, and they all voted on the Cayenne's bills that we did in 23. So it isn't like we're calling them back to ask them to do something that they haven't already pledged to do. We're calling them back because this is an important mission, and it's a mission that almost every Republican is on board with. And we'll see even with some of the Democrats. They just did this Lake and Riley bill in the Senate. I can tell you 4 years ago, that would have gotten 0 Democrat votes. It got Democrat votes, not nearly enough. It should have gotten more. But I think there is a recognition in that party that having an open border policy is not good for the viability of their party. That yet you have to have some, you have to have a border, you have to have, even I think some folks over there are starting to see that. So I think it's great. I think people should come in, vote their conscience on it, but obviously we want this to be public in a way that's accountable for people.
Governor, you, Sheriff T.K. Waters, and Executive Director Kerner have brought up some really great points about the cartels. I quite a few through the Middle District area. I just recently did a story on where thousands of firearms were going to CJNG and the Sinaloa cartel. So I'm just wondering, what can be done to put a curb on that while we're talking about the influx of drugs coming in? There hasn't been much conversation about the amount of firearms going back to Mexico.
Well, are you suggesting that Biden wasn't prosecuting those? Were they prosecuting them under Biden's Merrick Garland DOJ? You're not allowed to do a straw purchase. That is obviously against the law, and especially if you're arming a cartel, who now, by the way, because of President Trump's designation, the cartels have been designated as foreign terrorist organizations. That is going to open the floodgates to be able to treat them more along the lines of an Al-Qaeda or a terrorist group, which is it's totally appropriate. The cartels have been responsible for killing more Americans than any Islamic terrorist group in history. Not even close. You're talking about over the last 10 years, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of Americans because of overdose. They've also been involved in human trafficking, sexual trafficking, really, really bad. And the thing is they basically own the Mexican government lock, stock, and barrel. So you now have the president. He's obviously been tough on this Mexican president, and he may do some other things apart from cartel. But just the cartels being designated as foreign terrorist organizations, you're going to be able to do clandestine operations. You'll be able to do black ops in the cartel territory, and that will change things. That will change things in a really, really big way. So when you talk about what's happening in Florida, yeah, obviously, if somebody is illegally supplying them with aid and comfort, I'm confident Trump's Justice Department will hold them accountable if Biden's wasn't. But all the stuff that we see in our country is symptom of the underlying disease of the cartels inside of Mexico. And they are the biggest foment of destruction in this hemisphere. They have been for some time. We've been turning a blind eye as a country to it for too long, and those days are over now. So I think buckle up. I think you're going to see a lot. But getting the cartels at the source, that will end up benefiting us over here in the state of Florida. And we can do everything right in Florida. If you don't ever get the cartels at the source, it's like whack-a-mole. You get someone here, they get someone else new. But it's really just eliminating their ability to operate in their home country or countries, because they're in multiple countries. That is going to make a really, really big difference. So thank you, everybody. I'm excited about next week. I think that there are certain times where you just got to step up and do the right thing. I know we've got a lot of folks that are eager to get back in the saddle on Monday and do the jobs that we were elected to do. So we're going to continue to lead this effort. I know once I announced the special session for Florida, Tennessee announced a special session to help with immigration, and if we successfully get these policies through next week and sign them into law, you're going to see other states step up and do the same thing, and it creates really positive reinforcement. So Florida leads the way once again, and we look forward to doing that next week. Thanks, everybody.